optimize to make the best or most effective use of. What's going on, guys? It's Team Arsenal back with another video, and today we'll be starting off our new How to Yu-Gi-Oh series with episode 1 of how to deck build optimally. As I just described to you guys is the definition of optimization, to optimize, etc. And so we'll start off from there, but before we get into it, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe to your friends about us. At the time of recording this video, we have at least 397 subscribers, trying to get to 400, 500, etc. There's a 100 subscriber giveaway every 100 subscribers, so that means we're 3 subscribers away from our next giveaway. Also, remember to ring the notification bell. Yes, I realized that for the last year or so we did not have it set up, but now you guys can actually go ahead and ring the notification bell so you guys are notified every time we have a possible voting poll up, as all our content on the channel is voted on by you guys, the viewers, or when we actually have the new content up for maybe One Piece or Yu-Gi-Oh, which we actually will start doing One Piece, I want to say next week, so keep that in mind and stay tuned for that as well. Without further ado, let's get right into it though. Now, before you can build a deck, you have to first pick a deck, and this is what we would call deck selection. And there are 5 questions you can ask yourself to figure out what deck you would like to play. Who, what, where, why, and how. Who are you as a player? What is your playstyle? What is your personal preference as far as playing the game? Are you more of a control player, heavy on the gas combo player? Or maybe like to just play stun rogue decks. What is your end goal? What are you trying to accomplish by playing this deck or picking this said deck to do it? Where will you be using this deck? Locals, regionals, amongst your friends. Why do you want to play this specific deck? Does it answer any of the above questions? Or just something you simply want to play because you actually thought it was a pretty cool deck? Or maybe it's a meta call. How can you accomplish your end goal with this said deck? Now we can move forward with our main deck. So, instead of looking at them as spells, traps, monsters, let's look at them as the following: starters, extenders, defenders, engine requirements, and bombs. As you can see, I use Rescue Ace as an example for this segment here. For starters, you're thinking of cards like Rescue Ace Hydrant or Emergency, cards that literally can start your deck, start the game for you by themselves. Extenders are cards like Rescue Ace Impulse or Rescue that allow you to move further and forward in the game. Defenders like Contain, Extinguish, and Reinforcement are meant there to basically protect you and protect your plays. These are also cards like maybe Hand Traps, Board Breakers like Lightning Storm, etc. Engine requirements. These are cards that they're not the greatest by themselves, but they're an absolute must and necessity in the deck. In this case, 1 or 2 Rescue Ace HQ definitely needed. Bombs. These are cards that are guaranteed to win you games. If they resolve, most likely you're going to win on the spot. In this deck, in Rescue Ace Turbulence. Setting forward is really devastating, especially when you're setting up Contain, Extinguish, and a Rescue, or maybe an Emergency. So now we're going to put into practice. We'll start off by looking at our Pearly cards. So let's start off by talking about starters. And this deck is one of its huge strong suits. For starters, we have Triple Pearly Elite. We have, of course, all of our quick plays in Delicious, Happy, Pretty, and Sleepy. As all of these can simply discard a card and summon out our Pearly or our Pearly to keep our plays going. Then we also have a card like My Friend Pearly. Pay 500, reveal any of these Pearly cards, any of our starters, get one, and proceed to play the game. Though some starters are better than others, hence why they're known as superior starters and inferior starters. In this case, our superior starters are simply our Pearly monsters. For example, in the case of Pearly, this allows you to immediately get 1 excavated Pearly spell trap to your hand. If you hit, sometimes it doesn't, it is what it is. But the more important fact is that you actually can XYZ into one of your Pearly monsters using a quick play from your hand. However, Pearly is probably the best starter for some fact that it can immediately get you into maybe your My Friend Pearly, which then to get you into maybe when you're quick play. So now you have your Pearly plus your My Friend plus a quick play. So you're already +2 just simply off of having Pearly Resolve. So let's move on to our extenders. This is another part where I say this deck is actually pretty strong in some effect of not only are these quick plays starters, they also can be extenders, getting you into not 1, not 2, maybe even 3 per Lily. But you also have cards, example, Pot of Prosperity you can play on the deck to help with consistency. Now since we utilize our extra deck pretty heavily, I don't see myself ever going to use the 3 of these. Yes, I get the fact of using 3 because you actually want to consistently see the card, hence why you play 3 of a card. But in this case, I think I'll be fine with 2 and make room for other cards to put in the deck. So let's say for right now, that's one of our only extenders we want to add to the deck. After this, let's look into our defenders. This is one of the situations in this deck where it has plenty of space for defenders such as hand traps, board breakers, etc. But me personally, I'm more so of the hand trap variety because I feel like it covers bases and I actually can play on my opponent's turn. So I immediately go for cards such as Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, Infinite Impermanence, who have a pretty solid matchup and Effect Veiler in almost every matchup you play. Then I have cards like Droll and Lockbird, or maybe Nibiru I also can play. In those situations, I would personally prefer to main the Droll instead of the Nibiru because one, I don't want to Nibiru my own Noir, my Expert Noir, if I set it up, because it's only immune to my opponent's cards, not my cards. And then plus, I like the interaction with Droll and Lockbird where it can stun my opponent. I can easily set up maybe a Happiness or set my own Noir and pass turn back to them. Or in emergencies, it could be a level 1 to summon out and make a XYZ or a Link play. Knowing the meta right now, most decks are playing around, I want to say between 12 to 15 defenders at best. But most decks average around the 9 to 12, where they being maybe 9 hand traps and like maybe 3 board breakers. In this case, we'll go with the 12 hand traps, and I might get a little saucy by adding Cashier Fenrir. Why? Because this card not only is a great defender, it is also a bomb. Simply the fact that this card applies so much pressure by itself alone. 1, especially summon itself for free, it's a free body. 2, it allows you to search out another copy of itself, which can be just discard fodder for your quick play cards. 3, it applies a lot of pressure on its own because if your opponent activates a monster effect or you battle with this card, or attack with this card rather, it immediately banishes one face-up card on their side of the field face down. So your opponent already has to put some kind of pressure on this card, counter this card or something. So we'll make that our 13th through 15th slots in our board breakers, or defenders in this case. So now we're at 36 cards. I want to keep this around 40 because usually you want to play around a 40 card deck for some fact of the less cards you have in a deck, the more likely you are to see certain cards. It's a ratio thing. Like I'm actually going to, in the next video, I'm going to show you guys this little calculator I use. So in the case of a deck like this, you want to keep it around the 40 card range because you really want to see your quick plays. But there are some decks like Dragon Link, for example, where you prefer to play over 40, around 48, 50 range. For some fact that you have to cover up and make bricks and injury requirements in the deck where you don't want to see them, but they need to be played in the deck to make the deck as good or as strong as it can be. Or in the case of a deck I've played before where you guys seen a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago, you saw me play Sky Strikers, a 60 card Adventure Sky Striker deck for the last Columbus Regional. I'll leave the annotation for you guys to see that one. Where we played 60 cards because we had a lot of extenders, we had a lot of defenders, but we also had a lot of injury requirements and bricks, and in the form of our Draco back, our Wandering Griffin Rider, our Legal Knight, etc. So keep that in mind when you're picking a deck, that if it's a deck that can actually work around the fact that it can play more than 40 cards, that's fine. But most decks, like I said in the case of Pearlies, you would prefer to be around the 40. So with that in mind, we're going to just leave this at basically 4 spots left. And we haven't really touched necessary engine requirements, so we'll go ahead and get those in there. In this case, I would like to play 3 of our Stray Pearly Street. Some fact that we're in a meta where a lot of cards are targeting right now. And the best way to counteract that is by having a field spell that says my special summon monsters can't be targeted, for starters. And it also helps us play around hand traps like Effect Veiler and Infinite Permanence when our opponent tries to use them against us. Then our last and final spot goes to our nice little bomb here, Pearly Yeep. Now some people might not agree with this being bomb. I say it's a bomb for some fact of this card. Usually if this card resolves, it's pretty devastating. Think of this scenario where Let's say, for example, your opponent sets up a plump. It already has 2 Sleepy under it. They have straight Pearly Street. They go ahead and add another Sleepy under there. So they're basically going to draw 3 cards on your standby phase. And then once they get to the last, that third and final activation of plump to get that last draw, they chain yeep. And now they've got a Noir that has at least 5 to 6 materials, on top of the fact of now you're about to draw 3 more cards because you have a brand new Pearly XYZ on the board using Sleepy's effect. So for right now, we finished our little rough draft of our main deck. Let's move into our extra deck. Here we don't really have questions, we more have requirements. 1, it has to support or strengthen our main deck. In the case of Rescue Ace, we have Hida the Fire Charmer. It has to be consistently viable. It's a card we can consistently go into no matter what. We always meet the requirements. There's no specific, oh, I need X, Y, and Z to get this card. In the case of Rescue Ace, we have IP Masquerena. Game Changers. These are cards that you might be in a tight spot, but as soon as you summon this out, you already know you're about to break a board. You're about to put things back in your favor. You're about to apply a lot of pressure. In this case, SP Little Knight is that game changer. And then you have cards that you're looking for, like a closer, who can actually end the game for you, liquidly spit right on the spot. In the case of Rescue Ace, they apply a lot of pressure with their own bodies and their own monsters that can spam the board, but they also have cards like Axial Talker to help with that as well. And then finally, Tempo Pushers. These are guys who are not necessarily about to break a board or necessarily help or strengthen your main deck, but they definitely can help you cycle through and play as a pseudo extender in a sense. Cards like, in this case, Decode Talker Heat Soul, where you can pay 1,000, draw a card every single turn. So now going back to us, we'll start off our extra deck by simply playing the mandatory cards. Obviously, when you play a deck like this, you want to play your XYZs that correspond with your quick plays. So we'll start off with our Delicious. We have 1 Delicious, so we'll play 1 Plump. We have Happy, so this is usually our closer here. So we can go with 2 Happiness because you want to have 1 for the follow-up. Or in some cases, you can bench it off, the second one off of Prosperity. We definitely want to play at least 1 or 2 Beauty because this is a pseudo infinite permanence on your opponent's turn. Also allows you to break their board on your own turn by sending one of the cards you control to the graveyard to attach 1 card on their side of the field to said Beauty. And then we have Sleepy Memory. Not really the strongest one by itself. It's more so of an extender in a sense. So we will probably play one new aura for this one because it also helps us get into our bomb Pearly Eve. And then of course we have to play our boss monster, the whole linchpin of the deck, Noir. Now from here, since you've covered your bases on your actual monsters that are built for your deck, we can actually look outside of the realm of Pearlies and actually look at other cards you actually can add to the deck to actually enhance the deck as well. Cards like Assemble Robin, for me personally, a leg setting up a disruption outside of just Noir, and this applies a lot of pressure on its own. Then I just aforementioned Princess Sprite. It can help me with my tempo push. It can actually help me actually get more cards out of my deck, more spells and traps to actually help me hopefully keep playing. And then you want to have cards that can possibly be game changers, like Zeus or Typhoon. Now we're going to focus a little bit more on our versatility, as we don't want to have an extra deck that's strictly all XYZs, because if we get D-buried, it's basically GG from there. So we'll put in cards simply like Anima, which we know are pretty standard for this deck because they're all basically level 1s. Normal summon 1, punish your opponent by for putting a monster lined up with the extra monster zone. So that's pretty nice. We also put in a card like Dark, because if we can get an Anima set up, possibly take one of their monsters, or just link away one of our monsters and go into melee with Dark. They have a Dark in graveyard, take that Dark back, we can go immediately to our SP Little Knight, which is another game changer. And boom, that is our extra deck so far. So now once you finalize your extra deck and you already figure out what cards you're going to have coincide with your main deck, let's move into our side deck, the most important part of deck building. Cards with possible going first or going second versatility. These are cards like, for example, Triple Tactics Talents. If you know your opponent is on a lot of hand traps, definitely look into siding this card, or even if you already made it, you already hit the game. Congratulations. Counters to counters. And then look at possible meta cards that you know are complete gas against certain meta decks. Like for example, against Pearly, like I just mentioned, XYZ Encore sucks. Would I possibly side it in my deck against other Pearly players? Maybe. And then there's also the Smoke Screen gimmick. Most people don't really do this nowadays, but there was a point in time where a lot of decks or a lot of people actually had the opportunity to switch out a certain engineer deck to make the deck a completely different deck. This is not the most easy thing to do nowadays, as you would prefer just have spots to counteract certain decks in the format instead of actually just, you know, playing the all gas no brakes thing through and through. But maybe you can possibly do some kind of rescue ace thing and then side into your Sinful Spoils. It's a thought. And most importantly, do not overside. What I mean by this is, like say for example you're going against maybe Unchained and you know you have the sauce against them, you have the Cosmics, you have the Nibs, you have the Book of Eclipse, you have all of that stuff, and you decide in your whole entire side deck. Now you're killing the consistency of your deck because in fact if you decide out 15 cards, there's no way all that can be possible defenders. Also be maybe some extenders, maybe some engine requirements. Now you're killing the consistency of your deck just to counter your opponent, which, congratulations, you might just do that, but at the same time, the odds of you actually setting up your own plays and actually playing the game yourself are very slim. So coming back to us, what are some possible cards we can side to better counteract the meta? Well, one of the first cards that come to mind is Nibiru. Yes, I know I originally said I didn't want to main it, but if I'm going second, or I'm going against a heavy combo deck and I know I have to find a way to out their board, this is probably the best way to go about it. Looking at Medanium, sometimes Rescues depending on their line of play, Terra Elements. You also can consider cards like DD Crow, which are really good this format. And then we want to have a little back row disruption for like Rescue Ace, Labyrinth, etc. I prefer to have stuff that's quick chainable. So maybe like 2 Cosmic, don't want to have 3 because I don't think there ever was a situation where you could probably side 3 of these. And then maybe a Harpy or a Lightning Storm. Maybe we can put in a card like maybe D-Shifter, for example. Though this one, I might be iffy on, I have to test this one. I just don't feel comfortable with this one, but it's a format where every deck is graveyard reliant, including our own. So, yeah. And to wrap it up, maybe right now, for now, we just go with maybe Lightning Storm or possibly Talents and Thrust. Though in this deck, I probably would just opt for the Lightning Storm. And since I like the card and it's similar to Fenrir, we'll just say Pankratops for right now. So now we have our side deck. Now, as we already started explaining these cards to you guys, but we'll go back over them again. DD Crow, D-Shifter, as well as Nibiru and Cosmic Cyclones, they have a little versatility where they can be used inside and going first or going second, depending on the matchup. Cards like Pankratops, Lightning Storm, Harvey's Feather Duster are pretty strong counters to back row decks. Or maybe anti-spells, cards that really can hurt us. And then overall, there's probably not gonna be a time where we side in all 15 of these. Maybe at best 9 of these, but even then that might be too many. Now we have our deck, but we're not finished yet. We have to practice. Simply put, you can't just put that together and say, okay, yeah, that's good enough. No testing, nothing whatsoever. Just take it right to the event. You'll do fine. In most cases, if you're a good enough player, you might get away with that. But if you're not completely versed with that deck that you're bringing, or there's some matchups that you're unfamiliar with, or you're not constantly playing the game or going to regionals, locals, anything like that, then you should probably do some practicing. This doesn't necessarily even have to be in person. You can just practice with yourself. Playtest, Shadowbox, or you can hop online on DB. And then that also moves to my next point of testing before you buy cards. So it would be wise to test and see if this is the deck for you, or test and see if these are the ratios you want to use before you actually just run and buy the cards. So this is where you take advantage of playing online, maybe create some proxies and playing against friends, etc. Then it moves to my next point of utilizing all your resources. Talk to your friends, do some research. Like I said before, use DB, use Dual Nexus, use Master Duels if you have to, then research and analyze similar builds. If you're playing a very popular deck or a deck that's known to have top before, then you can always go back and look at YouTube or check on Yu-Gi-Oh! Top Decks, TCG Player, etc. for current builds that people are playing with the deck. Now the thing is, people get a little touchy about the term net decking, but it's only really net decking when you legitimately copy the deck card for card with no creativity whatsoever. But even then, you still can use that to test the deck online, see what you like about their build or what you don't like about their build, and then change it to fit your own criteria, your own needs. Then do not overthink it. Let's say, for example, you have a nice little build set up for Pearly, or you have a nice little build set up for Rescue or something like that, and you want to go test it out. Your only thing you're iffy about is your side deck, but now you want to put in cards like maybe Royal Decree because you don't want to lose the evenly match. You'll side the anti-spells, but only strictly because you don't want nobody to beat you with Lightning Storm or stuff like that. Or you're going to have a counter for the counter, so you might put in Judgments. Do not overthink it, guys. Keep it as simple as you can for yourself. The most optimal thing you can do is literally build a side deck to counteract your opponent. Once you go past that, it gets a little more complicated where you got to figure out where people are going to side against you and all that stuff, one step at a time. And then finally, have confidence in your creation. You built this. You took time. You watched this video. You sat here and read the cards. You learned. Be confident in what you put out there. But that's gonna wrap it up for episode 1 of How to Yu-Gi-Oh, guys. The next one we're gonna let you guys vote on it. You saw the other options we had for the vote this week. It might be one of those, guys. But I might change it up a little bit as well. But it's gonna wrap it up for this video, guys. It's been Ref Marcel signing out. Peace. Have a great day.